That's all we can do. Okay. All right. I'll do the intro again. What's up, comic book fans? This is Pete from Comic Books Transformed, and today we are talking about the Doom Patrol, episode 11 of season 4. We are in the home stretch, guys, and the show is almost done. Brian, there's only one episode left after this, right?
This is the second to last episode, yeah, which is kind of sad.
Penultimate episode, and this episode, spoilers, that's in our thumb that I made for this, we get the return of one of the main characters, right?
Yes, you spoiled this for me, actually.
Oh, sorry. Whoops.
But it was a nice surprise, though. So the spoiler here is that, Timothy Dalton shows back up as Niles Calder in several different time periods, as the team is kind of stuck in a time stream, and they're trying to get their longevity back so they can save Rita, so they can kind of pull back together their found family that's kind of been falling apart lately.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, on one hand, like the premise of this episode is sort of goofy, but like, did they just do all this great emotionally heavy work that makes it so good? Because it's like, you think about it, like, oh, they're in a, Cyborg now has a capsule in his back, and they're just going to be hang out in this time stream, and there's all this stuff that just completely doesn't make sense and is totally weird, but you just don't care. Like, it's whatever. It's like, okay, that's fine. I'll accept it. It's good. Give me this other good stuff.
Right. It's funny because it doesn't make sense. A lot of the show doesn't make sense, with the werebutts and all these kind of weird things and what Immortus became. But it's because Niles Calder, the focus of this episode, in this show, he's very different from the Chief in the comics, where the Chief in the comics is very much into like science, and the way he creates a lot of the Doom Patrol heroes is by just using science. But in this show, he also uses this weird kind of occult magic. I'd say he actually uses that more than he uses science.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, is that I think in the show that, I mean, they play, Timothy Dalton plays him as a much more sympathetic, relatable character. He's definitely done this fucked up shit, but you kind of like, you feel like he has some kind of, he actually cares about the people,
Yes, well, especially,
I don't necessarily think it comes across as strongly in the comics.
Yes. I mean, especially Dorothy, his daughter. That the show has done that very well, where it's like you can tell he cares about Dorothy.
Yes,
a lot. But you said that he interacts with the team in multiple different timelines. There's actually 3. The title of the episode is called "The Three Doctors," which is a Doctor Who reference.
Oh, nice.
Because whenever you interact with, like, because the Doctor changes his appearance, right? It becomes a different version every time. That's why there's so many different actors playing the Doctor.
Yep.
And whenever they kind of cross over, which is always a special event, it's always like the 5 doctors, the 2 doctors, I like how I held up 3 fingers and I said the 2 doctors. But, it's like a little Doctor Who wink, right? And this episode is very much like Doctor Who, because they're just like floating in space in this orb, and you see it's kind of the time stream going by. So it's like the TARDIS.
Yeah.
But out of those 3 scenarios where they're interacting with the Chief, I was very happy to see the Cliff interaction with the Chief.
I mean, I was happy with all. Well, I guess you really didn't see much with Rouge and the Chief.
Right.
The bulk of it happens with Robot Man, with Jane, and I really enjoyed both those scenes pretty equally, I would say. Cliff is just kind of laying into him like, you did this, you put me in this position here, you have to get me out of it,
right?
And ultimately he does end up helping him,
right? He helps him, but then he also
he's also the reason why he's in a wheelchair.
That was perfect. Did they say that for the final season?
Yeah.
And then the way he does it, he like kind of like flips him to save him.
Yeah, he's just like a lightning bolt coming out of an axe for the whatever.
Some
and he flips them sort of, and it kind of looked a little comical, honestly.
No, it's ridiculous.
But it was like, I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah, because it makes that crunch noise when he hits the bar.
Yes.
Yeah, like, oh, that's so cool. But I love that scene because that's something that they've really done well in the show. They really have this great dynamic between Cliff and the Chief, where it's like Cliff hates him because of what he's done for him, but he also has this kind of obligation. They both kind of use that idea that they're fathers against each other often.
Yeah.
Or kind of to persuade the other one. That's a really, really strong dynamic on this show, and it's just
Yeah, and I think also to add to it too is that he hates him because of what he did to him, but he's also appreciative because he gets to actually meet his grandson and have a part in his daughter's life that he wouldn't have otherwise had because he fucked up his own life.
right. So I mean, like, that relationship is great, and then we also got to see what's his face in there too. I always forget his
Ruby
fucking
Kipling.
name. Right.
Yeah.
And it's cool just to kind of see their reaction to Cliff and the fact that he's like from the future.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the fuck is this thing? Yeah. You also mentioned that the chief is with Jane. I really like those sequences because they bring back a big portion of the beginning of the show where he's kind of like interviewing each of the characters. There's videotapes of them. And Jane's just basically explained to him, like, this is what's going to happen in the future. Their goal is to get a piece of the longevity to save Rita. And then we've watched so much fucking content this week, man. Does any of them get a piece of the longevity?
No, they all fail.
Okay.
Well, Cliff doesn't get it. He gets sucked back to the portal beforehand, right after he breaks Niles' back. Niles is basically flat out tells Jane, like, I can't give it to you, and she understands.
Right.
And then Rouge, she looks like she like takes a piece off of it, but she gets caught by herself.
Yeah.
And then also kind of sucked away back into the portal, which, by the way, is happens because of Cyborg's knuckles.
Oh yeah.
That was another weird, funny thing. He was like, okay, sure, I'll go with this.
Yes.
So none of them were successful. I'm actually kind of happy about that. Like, I feel like the resolution of the episode where it's just like, well, we fucked this up too, but we still have a job to do, so we're gonna go do it.
Right.
And arguably everyone's in the same spot, with the exception of Jane. Jane seems to have reconnected with, well, it's not the underground anymore. The underground is gone now, but it seems like everybody's together. So she has all of the powers at her disposal of all the personalities that are left, I guess. And she references herself as the Kaleidoscope, which is, from the comics.
Yes. Is that from the more modern comics, or is that from like the Grant Morrison?
I don't know, but I feel like it makes sense for a Grant Morrison thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was more later.
Yeah. Who's the writer right now? Because it's not Gerard Way, right?
It's not Gerard Way, and it's funny. I've been buying the last 2 miniseries, and I'm still on the first miniseries. Like, I haven't even caught up. Like issue 7 of the more recent miniseries is finished. I'm still in issue 1 or 2 of the previous one.
Gotcha. Is it Steve Orlando or
is it Steve Orlando?
Oh, he's gonna look it up now.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up.
Well, I just I like the idea of her superhero name being Kaleidoscope, because obviously, like, Crazy Jane, that's just not PC to call someone with multiple personality disorder crazy anything,
Yeah.
So Kaleidoscope is much more appropriate. So yeah, she has the most sort of positive resolution out of all of their arcs. What was great about Rouge was that, yes, you're right, she does get to fight herself, and essentially it's this great sequence where you get to confront your past self and all of your kind of shame, and you're now your sort of matured older version. You get to fight that other version, and it's a kind of an intense fight. They're beating the crap out of each other, and it shows where she's gone as a character. Like, one thing that I thought they might have done for this season was, I thought that maybe Rouge might have gone back to being evil and did like the Brotherhood of Evil and like kind of did a turn, but no, she's part of this team.
Yeah, no, they implied that at the end of the previous episode, because she went to go confront
Immortus.
Oh my God, Isabel Feathers.
Yeah.
And nobody came with her, so she was like, they were kind of like spitballing about what they could do, but ultimately, she got sent along with the team, and she stuck with the Doom Patrol, thankfully. But yeah, I said before that I really enjoyed the scenes with Robot Man and Jane and Niles, but the scenes with Rouge was really good. It's just Niles wasn't really a part of it.
He wasn't.
But yes, her confronting her past self and just letting out all of her pent up, shame and aggression on her previous self. Like, don't be like this. Don't, you're a monster. Don't do it. That was powerful stuff.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny because Rouge, I think, unless they're doing stuff in the new modern version of the comic, Rouge is pretty much always villainous, and
Yeah.
I don't know if people know this, but in the Teen Titans cartoon, not Teen Titans Go, but the original cartoon, the Brotherhood of Evil is like the main villains. They're the main villains of like the last season. And so you have like the Brain and Monsieur Milan, and you have Madame Rouge, and she's actually kind of scary in that cartoon.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen that episode, but I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that. That was a great show.
Yeah. It's a whole season arc where she's like the Brotherhood of Evil is trying to take him out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I can find it somewhere.
You know what? I bet you it's on HBO Max or Max.
Good point. Yeah, I had that for another month, so.
There you go. Nice. Okay. So then we need to talk about Larry, though, because even though he doesn't interact with the chief, he does have his own beat this episode, too. And actually, Cyborg does as well. Cyborg doesn't go into any different timeline. He's kind of just in the time stream, but he's sending out SOS messages, and it pays off because he interacts with his friend in the future.
Yeah, so he gets to meet his future self, and he gets to kind of see a glimpse of what his choices kind of make, or what the impact that his character will have in the future, and that he's doing the right thing, being Cyborg and on the right path. And it's interesting seeing this because he has the most positive story out of anybody here now, because he's on the upswing while everybody else seems to be on the downswing. Like they're all on their way out essentially, and he's kind of just at the beginning of his story, really.
Right, and what's really interesting about that is that each of the other characters, they're all influenced by the longevity, I guess, except Larry isn't really either.
It's a good question. I mean, yeah,
well, he had the longevity, right?
I guess he did.
Yeah,
and maybe that's why was able to survive being possessed by the negative spirit.
Yeah.
I would say the only person that doesn't have it, I guess, is Rouge. Maybe, I don't know, because they were going after 3 pieces of longevity, but at the same time, it's like this is all one of those weird time paradoxy things. Like, there's only so much of it that exists. If they go take it from the past, how do they get it in the future? All that kind of stuff there.
Right.
And then, do they just need a little piece of each? Do they each need an entire piece? There was only 3 pieces.
Yeah.
Or if one of them succeeded, would that have been enough? I guess it doesn't ultimately matter because none of them succeeded. They accepted their fate and they're moving forward.
Right.
But with Larry, Larry gets to talk to his previous negative spirit, which I don't remember then if they ever even gave it a name or if it has a name. But he also lets out his frustration in a way too, because he's like, my life was over and I've been given this opportunity to be a father again, and I this year I'm fucking it up.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know what to do because he feels he's dying. I mean, we actually see a splotch of blood coming out of his bandages earlier on in the episode. And he says he has some vision of him flying into the sun. So I don't really quite understand what Larry gets out of it, I guess. This was probably the fuzziest part of the episode for me.
Yeah.
But
I think, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that, last time we talked about this, I mentioned how it's all like this metaphor where he was in this family and it was this very suburban cookie cutter family. But then he meets this sort of exotic gay man, but it's the negative spirit. And then they essentially somehow have a child together. And then it's like the exotic gay man, the negative spirit, leaves him and he's responsible for the child himself. Now that he's by himself. And I feel like when you go with it just as a metaphor, that's what this is all about. It definitely doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so I think the implication is that the negative spirit literally says to him, "You're stronger than you think you are," in this episode. And then the idea is that he's just going to fly into the sun, which I'm pretty positive that's the last time we're going to see Larry, just for him flying into the sun. And then Keeg is somehow alive, but Larry's body is gone. That's what I assume is going to happen in the last episode.
I'm assuming that all the characters with the longevity. Well, you know what though? There was a preview. I don't know if you saw it. I usually don't see the previews.
Right.
I could swear there were some scenes of the characters.
Oh no, did it freeze? Oh
no, I'm not frozen.
We're in the middle of our marathon.
Oh, yeah, I'm
good. Okay, keep going then. So
the preview. The preview had. had images of the characters looking young again.
Oh,
I think. I'm not sure.
okay.
I'm honestly, I don't know how they're going to wrap everything up
Yeah.
because they really didn't advance the battle very much here because Immortus is still there, the werebutts are still there. They don't have their longevity. Rita's not even in the same room there. So like, what happens to wrap up this battle quickly so we can get enough of a satisfying end to all these character arcs?
Yeah. I feel like it's going to be a scene where like maybe Cyborg is out fighting the butts himself, and then like some random characters that you have seen throughout the show, like Kipling, and maybe that the butt hunter or something like shows up, and or like actually we haven't seen Casey, right? So like maybe like Casey.
Yeah, where's Casey and Dorothy too? That's a good point.
So probably what will happen is like you'll have the characters that are affected by the longevity kind of facing off against the Mortis, and then the other ones are like facing off against the werebutts. And it'll probably be the sequence where like it looks like they're gonna get overwhelmed and they're gonna die, and then the people with the Mortis are able to do something, and it kind of just like resets the whole thing. That's probably what happened. Yeah.
And we need a satisfying end to the Nicholas and whatever the butt's son's name is. Story.
Wait, there's a son of a butt too?
Yeah, no, remember the last episode where the scientist the scientist turns into a werebutt?
Yeah.
And then they're talking about a letter from their son.
Oh, the son,
is the one leading the werebutt revolution, but I can't remember his name.
And so he bit the mom.
I guess that's what they implied, yeah.
I know we need to move on to our next show, but I just want to point out that like that whole sequence where the woman turned into the werebutt, that scientist woman,
yeah,
like I felt kind of almost like violated for that actress, that she had to, at this point in her career, kind of be like, oh no, I've been bit, I'm going to turn into a werebutt. And it just sounds like, oh man.
At least it was off camera.
Yes, but it just like, I was like, this show, what it can get people to say and do is kind of incredible.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are on our marathon. We just finished Gen V. We are now at the end of our Doom Patrol. We got one episode left of Doom Patrol to go. If you guys want to see what we have to say about the finale, please join us next week. But Brian and I are now moving on to Loki. And so make sure you guys subscribe.